Thanks, Alana, and thanks everybody for being here today. As Alana mentioned, we believe strongly that the Diablo Canyon doesn't actually qualify for this federal subsidy program that the governor is asking Secretary Granholm to apply to Diablo's extended operations. And in fact, as I'll lay out, doing so would be completely counterproductive to that program's ostensible purpose, which is not just to extend the operations of unprofitable nuclear power plants, which Diablo is not, but also but principally to prevent increases in greenhouse gas emissions resulting directly from the closure of those nuclear power plants. And the irony to this whole situation is that the reasons that Diablo is closing are actually to facilitate the growth of renewable energy and the achievement of California's emissions targets. And so, in fact, there are a number of things already in place that will guarantee that there will not be increases in greenhouse gas emissions in California arising from the closure of Diablo Canyon. And in fact, as my presentation and others will lay out, there's quite the opposite is actually the case. So I'm going to go ahead and share some slides sort of laying all of this out. Okay, so the fundamental question here is, why is Diablo Canyon closing? And as Alana laid out, this is arising from a joint proposal filed with the California Public Utilities Commission by PG&E in 2016 as a result of a settlement with labor unions and environmental groups to this effect. It resolved years of litigation and expensive regulatory interventions on all the parties' parts, and it includes a just transition for Diablo workers and local communities that is actually a national model for how to manage the closure of power plants and the economic transition for workers and communities. So PG&E's decision to close Diablo, was based on several decisions that it actually laid out, which I'll review. Diablo's generation was not going to be needed with load reductions in PG&E's service territory arising from a number of factors, including the formation of community aggregate renewable projects, energy efficiency and load reductions, and the expansion of rooftop solar statewide. They also found that Diablo, this is a key point actually, is that they found that Diablo's inflexible baseload generation would actually block the growth of renewables and cause transmission problems and higher costs on consumers going forward. And so that, so the closure of Diablo Canyon was actually going to facilitate the expansion of renewables and the achievement of California's emissions goals at lower cost to consumers. Now, this is from PG&E's own proposal, that this will facilitate the orderly and reliable phase out of Diablo Canyon with greenhouse gas-free resources. And it laid out the various reasons that I just described in their presentation to the PUC. There's no need for inflexible baseload generation, that the evolution of the grid in California and elsewhere in the country with the expansion of renewables actually makes the particular type of generation that Diablo Canyon provides counterproductive to that transition. And then the declining need for Diablo Canyon generation. And in this chart, what PG&E laid out was two scenarios involving the growth of solar through community choice aggregation in its service territory and the decreasing amount of electricity generation that the PG&E was going to be responsible for providing through 2030. And in fact, this high CCA penetration scenario is the reality is tracking more with this, making Diablo's generation also superfluous on its system. So what's happened since then? This was in 2016 to 2018 when this proposal was being laid out. And in fact, the CPUC has taken a number of actions in a number of different proceedings involving not just PG&E, but all the other utilities in the state to make sure that the requirement that Diablo's closure, as well as other goals for California's energy system, were met. And so there's a series of orders, that the CPUC has issued. There was one in 2019. And then others in subsequent years, basically laying out requirements for utilities across the state, including PG&E, to add a total of, by 2026, over 22,000 megawatts of new capacity from renewables and energy storage. This is more than 10 times the electricity generating capacity of Diablo Canyon, and will result in much, much more renewable generation than the electricity that Diablo Canyon provides. So kind of going through this in different ways. So these CPUC orders for renewable energy and storage will result in, by the time Diablo Canyon closes in 2025, more than 20,000 megawatts of renewable energy capacity and storage capacity in California. That's, again, almost 10 times as much as Diablo Canyon's. Cumulatively, the CPUC's orders for renewable energy and storage on a year-by-year basis are quite substantial, and they add up over time, with 2024 being one of the key years when most of this capacity is scheduled to come online, and it has to by CPUC order. In various components, renewable energy generation themselves, energy storage projects, and then what are called hybrid renewable energy projects that incorporate energy storage into the system. Then there's the cumulative capacity in the years that we're talking about. And so we're looking at over 10,000 megawatts of renewable energy, over 10,000 megawatts just of storage capacity between now and 2026 that will have come online. In terms of annual generation provided by this energy storage, even just the energy storage projects alone by 2026 will produce more electricity for California's grid on an annual basis than Diablo Canyon does currently. This is sort of a tremendous statement itself, just of the gross amount of capacity that we're talking about. But in terms of the goal for Diablo to close without any increases in emissions, this chart is actually really telling. And this is just this is a chart of the renewable energy generation planned to come online from the year before Diablo Canyon closes to the year after Diablo Canyon closes. And this shows the annual change in Diablo Canyon's generation. This is the red stacks. The green stacks are the amount of generation provided in the first year of renewable energy projects coming online during this time frame, so that only you're seeing essentially the net increase in renewable energy generation in those years. And then the blue charts, the blue stacks, are the net of that new and renewable generation versus the change in Diablo Canyon's output in these years. And so what you see is in each year, the amount of new renewables that are scheduled to be coming online in each of the years is greater than the change in Diablo Canyon's output as it's phased out. And so that in itself, really, makes it completely clear that, not only is California going to be replacing Diablo Canyon with a portfolio of resources that are greenhouse gas emission free, but that in fact that the total amount of that adds up to much more than Diablo Canyon's output. And so that really, that really should make it clear that under the express purposes of the DOE program, the Diablo Canyon can't qualify.